So we will be doing a unique episode of the Reynolds Direction podcast today. I actually have with me two separate guests, both from TOMO Mortgage. We will begin the first part of the conversation talking with Sean to discuss the business side of TOMO, and then we all next for the second part bringing on Ted to discuss some more of the financing process behind what TOMO does on a day-to-day basis. So Sean, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself and talk about how you found yourself working for TOMO Mortgage and how the business was founded.
Cool. I'm Sean Guerra. I'm Director of Business Development for TOMO Mortgage. Excited to be here today.
Glad to have you. So I want to get into kind of some of the nitty-gritty behind TOMO's background, how it was founded, and how you personally decided to get into the mortgage business.
Well, it goes back to my days working at Zillow and our co-founders' days working at Zillow. So our two co-founders, Greg Schwartz and Carrie Armstrong, worked at Zillow for 10 plus years, both of them. Greg was the president of the Premier Agent business, which is the business that connects customers who are interested in buying a house with real estate agents. And Carrie was his vice president. And they built up that business. The whole goal of it was to connect customers with agents that can help them accomplish what they wanted to accomplish, which was buying a house. And throughout that time, Greg and Carrie realized that the mortgage process was the most stressful process of that transaction. So that's when they decided to branch off and start TOMO Mortgage.
Excellent. It's definitely a very interesting backstory, having so many different people from one of the biggest real estate websites in the world to kind of look at how the process breaks down for getting pre-approved and getting financing for a home, and taking that perspective from the consumers and business end of that, and specifically focusing on the financing process. Yeah. It definitely sounds like a very unique background, especially in this kind of a marketplace we're in.
Yeah, I mean, the worst thing ever is you're trying to buy a house and the closing date comes up, right? And all of a sudden, you're getting a call from the lender to the agent or to the customer or to both saying, hey, we can't close. And it's typically because the customer is working with a big bank or somebody where they're just viewed as a number. And at TOMO, we're trying to be the exact opposite of that, right? So we treat every customer like it's our first or our last. And the goal is to bring transparency to the process, do it at a cheaper cost to save money and put that back into the customer's pocket, and eliminate the stress of the transaction by bringing technology to the process to make things seamless in terms of having to track down documents and surprises coming up at the last minute. TOMO does all of that up front so that you can go and work with your agent, go shop for a home, and make it be fun the way it should.
Absolutely. I think definitely in a market like this, there are always going to be questions as to how one's monthly payment and the interest rate and all the different documentation involved affects the entire home buying process. So I definitely would love to get into more of the specifics of what exactly makes TOMO different to the consumer from the day you initially have the first phone call to the day they're able to close, in terms of getting financing approved and finalizing everything for a transaction.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, we're staffed 7 days a week with the best in the business professionals, both loan officers in a position, what we call pre-approval advisor, which is actually somebody who's specifically dedicated to walk customers through the application. Right? So we are building this wonderful technology to make the process easier and better, but it's not at the sacrifice of the human touch and having somebody that you can get to know and trust and guide you along in the process. But with our technology, very similar to an experience you might have with like a TurboTax, right? Can't tell you how many times our loan officers are talking to a customer who's got to go into a storage unit to track down documents out of a file cabinet. Right? That's very old school, and we can still service somebody that prefers to do things that way. But with us, imagine being able to sync up a bank account or a couple of them and a social security number, and TOMO being able to actually pull in all of that data for you in a completely safe, encrypted way, very similar to how you would sync up your bank accounts to pay your bills on a monthly basis. So you don't even have to think about it, right? You can focus on your life and finding a home. that's one thing that's different. And then from a cost perspective, very competitive on the rates, post them right on our website so our customers can make sure they're getting the best rate when shopping around for a mortgage. And we also charge no lender fees, right? We're licensed and operating in 20 plus states. We'll be in all 50 by the end of next year. And we don't have to pad our pockets with fees here and there. Zero lending fees from a processing, origination, underwriting standpoint. We're trying to save money for our customers.
That is a very big point that definitely makes TOMO very appealing to the consumer, is the no lender fees. And I think that definitely shows how much TOMO overall tries to simplify the process to where there is no hidden fees like that. And it syncs up all the information to where people aren't having to go back and forth into accounts, passwords, paperwork at any different point throughout the transaction. It sounds like TOMO has a much more efficient way of addressing a lot of those issues up front to where it makes the process a lot smoother overall.
As a home buyer, you have a few different options, right? You can speak to a lender who will issue you a pre-approval based upon stated income, which essentially means you as the customer tell the lender how much you make, what your debts are, and some other information over the phone, and they'll say, hey, you're good to shop at this point. The problem with that is none of that information is actually verified. There might be some other things that you as the customer might not even know affect the home buying process, and that can create issues down the road. So the difference with TOMO is we'll do all of the verified work up front. We'll give you the strongest pre-approval possible. We can even give an underwritten pre-approval, which for a home buyer means they're basically good to go. Now they just got to go out and find the property, but we're saying to the customer, hey, we can lend to you, right? And so by collecting the documents up front, it ensures that they don't have to go and collect documents and find a home and sign a contract and get an inspection and get their movers set up. Get the pre-approval up front. With TOMO that it's solid and you're good to go, and you can worry about all that other stuff, which hopefully an agent like you is going to line up and make easy for that customer.
Absolutely. I definitely think that the more that gets addressed and the more that's addressed up front with the process like that, the easier it makes the whole shebang. And it sounds like TOMO does a great job with that. Now, one other thing that I'm sure you get asked about all the time and that we get asked about all the time as realtors is interest rates.
Yep.
How much they're fluctuating, what the current amount is, how it affects the monthly payment, and how it affects just the overall process for financing. As this market has kind of evolved with the fluctuations in interest rates, are there any kind of programs or different kinds of factors that TOMO's put in place in the process to address customers' concerns regarding interest rates?
Yep. I mean, totally. Interest rates, they are what they are, right? They're definitely important because who wants to pay more interest over the life of the loan? We want to keep as much money in our pocket. But the reality is we were sitting at 2 and 3 and it shot up super quick, and that can be scary for people. What we advise is, hey, if you like the home, right, and you can see yourself living there long term and you're comfortable with the monthly payment, then the rate is what the rate is. At some point down the road, and we can't guarantee when that would be, but there might be an opportunity to refinance. We've seen the rates fluctuate a ton. They're 6 some weeks, they go up to 7 other weeks. One of the things that we've done is implement a lock and shop program. And so what lock and shop means is typically to lock a rate, you would have to have a contract for purchase. With our lock and shop program, it's a little bit different. The customer can lock the rate for up to 4 months, right? They actually don't need a property address in order to do so. We ask for a small $450 deposit because we've got to lock the rate for the customer. And then when they close on the home, they'll actually get that $450 credited back at closing. So in that sense, the program is free. If you're super serious and you've got sort of a timeline or a real need to move, like you're moving for a new job and you're going to be in a certain location by a certain date, right? And then one other cool thing that we've implemented to protect the people who want to leverage that program is a float down clause. So let's say they've locked their rate, they go out in month 2, they find the property, but now the rate, the market rate is actually lower than what they had locked the rate for. We would actually honor a one-time float down clause so the customer is not locked into that rate if the market is a little bit lower. Now, we're not seeing too much of that, but it's there as protection for the home buyer.
And I definitely think that's a great option to have as interest rates move around so much. Definitely giving the consumer that kind of a safety net to kind of see how the market goes as they're searching for homes in person. Definitely having that option makes it a pretty viable factor in the process overall.
I mean, imagine the market's competitive, right? It's still competitive, especially down here in Vero Beach area and all around Florida, but we operate in many states, right? The market's hot in Connecticut, it's hot in DC, it's hot down in Florida. Imagine you get a pre-approval, you go out and shop, and you're pre-approved for, let's say, $500,000. And you're looking at a type of home that's within a certain kind of, it checks all the boxes for you, right? And then a month later, you finally find the one that you love, but the interest rate went a full point higher, and now your monthly payment is potentially a couple $100 more. And then you multiply that couple $100 each year for 30 years. One, you owe a lot more money now. Two, you potentially might not even be comfortable with that monthly payment once you find the home you love. And so the point of this program is to make sure that that doesn't happen and you don't have that huge feeling of FOMO because you finally found the home that you want and now it's not affordable.
Absolutely. There's no FOMO with TOMO. Sorry, I had to throw one corny joke.
I may have said that a time or two in my days as well.
Absolutely. Well, no, I mean, it sounds like TOMO definitely has a lot of great programs. One of them also being the appraisal gap coverage. Definitely in this market, as we've seen home values fluctuate, listing prices fluctuate. In terms of lining everything up number-wise with appraisers and the bank and the market, that has been a challenge for the past couple of years, regardless of what interest rates or the market's doing.
Yep.
So I am curious to know, I would love to get your analysis of TOMO's approach to when an appraisal gap occurs and it makes it difficult for a deal to happen. What kind of solutions does TOMO have in place in order to address something like that?
Yeah, this is definitely one of our most unique offerings. This was something that we saw what was happening with the market. We work with tons of great agents like yourself and the Reynolds team across Florida and other states. And we saw deals falling apart. I remember I was down in Tampa and I'm at dinner and an agent called me and she said, the house appraised for $100,000 less than the purchase price.
Wow.
That's a deal killer, right? That means either the seller's got to come down in price. They don't want to do that. The buyer's got to come up with the difference because the lender's only going to lend on what the house appraises for, right? So deals fall apart and people's dreams get shattered. With appraisal coverage, what we're guaranteeing is, let's say the purchase price is $500,000. The list price is $500,000 and your clients and you decide we've got to offer $520,000 to win the deal. Before you put in the offer, the agent who's working with the buyer can come to TOMO and say, we're going to offer $520,000 on 123 Main Street. It's listed at $500,000. We're going to ensure that we back that appraisal no matter what happens. Meaning if that house appraises for $500,000, what it's listed at, and now there's a $20,000 difference, the loan still funds at a $520,000 purchase price, which means the buyer's interest rate doesn't change, their down payment doesn't change, the terms of their loan do not change. TOMO's working some magic on the back end to say, hey, we've got you, we already ran the numbers on this, you're good to go. And so not only does that help the buyer, right, from a protection standpoint, but it's also a great way to ensure the sell side that you've got the strongest offer, because you can tell the listing agent and the sellers that if this house doesn't appraise, because we're coming in pretty aggressive, this deal's not going to fall apart. You're not going to have to lower the price, and our buyer's got it covered.
Absolutely. That is a very unique offering that TOMO has, and definitely addressing a very emotional component numbers-wise like that in the process definitely makes it a very nice option and safe to have in the overall procedure.
I personally don't know another lender that offers that in the country. To my knowledge, we're the first company to offer it, and I believe we are still the only company to offer it.
Wow. That definitely makes TOMO very unique in a lot of ways. And now I think we will be bringing on Ted from TOMO Mortgages to describe and go over the full pre-approval process and some of the more nitty-gritty behind mortgages in general. But Sean, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Trevor. You're in good hands with Ted.